Hi guys, for today's lesson we're going to be dealing with data and specifically about how we collect data. So this is a bit of an introduction into the statistics topic that we're starting. Today is going to be just a bit about terminology and about some of the basics about why we learn about statistics. Before we get stuck into the words to remember, the idea about statistics and what a statistician does. His job is pretty much to like make surveys, to make things that to do experiments where you'll be collecting data from those sorts of experiments, to make judgment calls for certain questions that can't be answered except for by studying by pretty much studying surveys and studying experiments, etc. Okay, so let's get into some of these words to remember. So first up, a survey. What is a survey? It's just a tool that collects data by asking questions of a certain group of people. So you're pretty much giving a survey to a certain group of people that you want to target, and you'll get data from them. Their answers is what we consider data. Next word to understand is population. So a population is a group of people, animals or objects with something in common. So e.g. all the people in Australia. This is the typical sort of population we think of. We think of the population of a country. So that is an example of a population. But it could also be all the people in your school. They all have something in common. They go to your school. That could be considered the population of a school. We could go even smaller. We could say all the people in your maths class, for example. That is considered a population because they all have something in common. They're all in the same maths class. So populations can be big. They can be small. It depends on what you're focusing on. What's the commonality between those people? Okay, next up is the word sample. So a sample is a group that has been chosen from a population for data collection. So pretty much, sometimes it's quite tedious to get data from a whole population, to literally give out a survey to every single people in a country or a city, for example. It's just not possible. So what we do instead is we select a group from that population to give the survey to. So only a certain amount of people within that population get the survey. And that is called a sample. It's like you're picking a few people from a certain group. So say if you picked just 5 students from your maths class for a survey, those 5 students would be just a sample from that class. It's not everyone, it's just a group of people from that class. A census is when an entire population is chosen for data collection. So if you want to do a census, that means you want to literally survey every single person in a population. So like the country does a survey to figure out lots of things like average incomes, etc. And literally everyone in the country has to fill out a form, like every single homeowner, etc. has to fill out a form. So that's what they would consider a census because everyone does it. So if you surveyed, say, all the members of your maths class, you literally did everybody, that would be considered a census because you've done the whole population. Next word to understand is what biased data means. So biased data is the data from surveys which have only been given to certain members of a group. So e.g. if you decided to only survey females in your maths class survey. So the idea is that when you're giving out these surveys, you've got to pretty much give them to random people in your population or in your group, because you want to try and get information from everybody, no matter what their gender is or what their interests are, etc. You want to make sure you're picking random people from that group. If you only decide to give the survey to certain people, you would consider that to be biased data, which is unreliable data to use. Okay, just a few rules to remember. So when you are collecting data, there are certain rules that you need to follow, that need to be followed. So you need to ensure that your data is not biased. It's really important that you're getting a bit of a voice from everybody within a population. You don't want to just be focusing on the boys or the girls or the sporty people or people who who like something but don't like something else, because you don't want there to be you don't want this biased data. You don't want data that kind of over represents one like type of person. You want to get a nice mix of everyone. That's what we consider reliable data. Next up, if your target population is very large, ensure that your sample size, number of people you survey, is large to minimize your potential bias. So the idea is sometimes it's just impossible to survey a whole population. So if you can't, then you need to make sure that your sample size, so the size of your sample, is quite big. The bigger the better, because you want to try and get as many information from as many people as possible. So the rule is that the more people you survey, the more information you've got, the more reliable it will be, because potential bias will be minimized that way. If you only decide to survey a few people, there's the chance that you've accidentally picked like too many from one. Like you haven't pretty much got representation from all the different types of people in the population. So that would be considered bias. So you try to get as many people as possible. And lastly, your survey questions need to be worded carefully. They shouldn't try to provoke a certain type of answer, and there should always be the option to give a neutral option. So pretty much summing that up is that your answers need to be very neutral. They don't want to be trying to push you to say yes or no, just on how you word a question. And with these sorts of questions based on when you're trying to find people's opinions on something, or when you're asking a lot of questions, you want to try and give them a neutral option. You don't want them to be forced to say yes or no, for example. You might say yes, no, or maybe. Try to make sure there's a middle ground, because lots of people don't want to have to go one side or the other. They should be allowed to stay neutral. Okay, I hope this helps. Bye.